Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Inside the Pigskin. My name is Scott Morgan, around the Motor City Madmouth, and we have a great show lined up. Before we get to the nature of the show, I want to introduce my crew tonight. And the man that wrote the article that we're going to talk about is Greg Fuchs, sports writer for the South Florida Tribune. Welcome back, Greg.
Glad to be here. Welcome, everybody.
And my star running back, Mel Farr Jr. Glad to have you back.
Thanks for having me back. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome. And last but not least, Mr. Patriot himself, my right-hand man and jack of all trades, Steve Balestrieri.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure having you guys. We call us the Fearsome Foursome. We got a lot to tackle tonight. And tonight's topic, folks, is going to be the quarterback carousel. Greg Fuchs obviously wrote a really nice, detailed article on this. And, you know, I think one of the things that's important here that Greg addressed in his story is the fact that he talks about potentially 14 teams looking to make a change at the quarterback position. And our focus will be on the six that must make a change: the Steelers, the Colts, the Broncos, Washington Commanders. Get used to that one, folks. Carolina Panthers and the New Orleans Saints. So, and of course, can't forget about the Aaron Rodgers drama. All right, Greg, where do you want to go with this?
Yeah, well, I want to start it off with the obvious. I mean, quarterback position, in my mind, is unarguably the most critical position in all professional sports. All right, I don't think there's even anyone a close second. And when it comes to the NFL, it's not. If you want to win a Super Bowl, it's not good enough to just have one of the top 32 quarterbacks. If you want to make a run at the Super Bowl, you need a top 10 quarterback. All right. And like you said, there's probably a dozen teams out there that would need to upgrade their quarterback position, but there aren't a dozen quarterbacks available who can get you to the Super Bowl. I mean, not a great year for the draft, very poor year for free agents. And I mean, the biggest thing that's going to get the most play is where's Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, and Deshaun Watson going to play next year? I don't think anybody really knows right now. And those would be the best option for any team looking for a quarterback. So if you look at the teams that I think they need to add a quarterback now, because I think several of these teams, if they get the right quarterback, they are legit Super Bowl contenders, or they have some offensive talent on their team. You can't let it go to waste. Carolina Panthers, for example, they can't afford to waste the Christian McCaffrey years and the DJ Moore years. So Carolina, who picked 6th in the draft, they need to do something. All right. Not sure if they'll draft a QB. Maybe they'll try and trade for one of those other 3 guys. Who knows? Pittsburgh. Roethlisberger is gone. You hear rumors they're going to draft a quarterback, but they're not picking until 20th. But there's a team, great defense, a lot of good receivers, Najee Harris in the backfield. There's a team, Super Bowl contender, if they added a Russell Wilson, for example. Tampa Bay without Brady. They need to find somebody. Denver doesn't get a lot of publicity, but they have an extremely talented roster outside of Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback. If Aaron Rodgers goes there, they're a legitimate Super Bowl contender. So those are 3 of the teams. I think Washington, New Orleans, I don't think they're going to be a contender next year, but they definitely need a quarterback. And the other team I got a question mark next to is Indianapolis. Is Carson Wentz the answer or not? I'm not sure if the coach or general manager know the answer to that. I see Steve shaking his head. So, Steve, I don't know. There's a good segue there. Go to Steve and have him tell us about Indianapolis and Carson Wentz.
Well, I've never been a big fan of Carson Wentz, even that, almost MVP season he had in Philadelphia. I wasn't a believer in him. I thought Indy made a mistake making a big trade for him last year, and I think it cost them. I think they have a very talented football team. They have a great running back. They have a tough physical football team, and the only thing lacking is the quarterback. And I thought they made a huge blunder trading for him last year. I would have made a move trying to go elsewhere, but they thought they could, I guess, reinvigorate him or whatever you want to call it, his career. I think it came back to bite them, down the stretch, and I think they're back to square one.
Well, amazingly enough, they don't have a number 1 draft choice in 2022. And number 2, I was at the Jacksonville game, for which the Colts laid an egg to the Jaguars, and I just could not believe what I saw with Carson Wentz. I thought for sure when I went to that football game, Jonathan Taylor was going to have a huge game and that Carson Wentz would not lose him the game. And the way he performed there, I hate to tell you, one game there to me looked like career suicide, but that's exactly what I saw 5 hours away in Jacksonville, Florida, up at TIAA Bank Stadium. So, and it's a shame because he went to Indianapolis to be reunited with Frank Reich, and everybody thought the dynamic was there. I give the Colts credit for making the trade. Unfortunately, it didn't really work out well for him. And you guys have alluded to the fact that you don't want to, you have a great running back like Jonathan Taylor. You don't want to lose him. And also, I understand T.Y. Hilton is a free agent. So, Colts are going to have to make sure they have some good wide receivers as well. So, Mel Farr, what's your take on the Carson Wentz situation?
I was never real high on Carson Wentz coming out. I thought it was a reach. I think a lot of these quarterbacks. Well, I mean, first of all, if he was, and I know there may be some exceptions, but if he was so good, he would have been at a larger school, in my opinion. So they reach for a lot of these guys. And I don't know how they even come up with the names when they come up with them. But every team is a lot of teams are just a quarterback away. And so that's the most important piece on any football team. If you can figure out that position, then everything else becomes easy. You look at Seattle, when they had Russell Wilson on that rookie contract, things were real easy for them. They were playing very good football. Now Russell Wilson is very expensive, and it's a give and take in a salary cap league. If you're giving him that much money, he's taking up 30-40% of the cap, then you're going to lack depth somewhere. And somebody's going to probably take the blame for it. And in this particular case, my old teammate, Ken Norton Jr., unfortunately, had to fall on the sword for the lack of depth that they've had on that defensive side of the football because of the albatross contract that Russell Wilson has. So every team is a quarterback away. They're looking for a quarterback. Obviously, Indy, with the retirement of Phillip Rivers, they needed a quarterback. Carson, he was available. He was made available. They made the trade. I think he can be a serviceable quarterback. But is he going to get you to that next level? I don't know. I don't think so. It's kind of like Ryan Tannehill. I mean, is Ryan Tannehill going to get you to that next level? Yeah, you might win 10, 12 games. You might have the best record throughout the season and have home field advantage in the playoff. But is he going to be able to make those throws when those throws need to be made, like what Matt Stafford did in the Super Bowl? I don't know. And that's the same way I feel about Carson Wentz. Well, I shouldn't say I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think he's that guy. So, they have, like Indianapolis, along with quite a few other teams, they have to find that guy. They have to find that guy. And if they don't have the guy on their roster right now, then they're looking in the draft or they're looking in the free agent market and to try to find that guy. But those guys just don't come available that often. Is Aaron Rodgers, is Green Bay going to let Aaron Rodgers go, or is Aaron Rodgers going to leave Green Bay? I don't know. If he does, there's your number one guy right there. I mean, Aaron Rodgers probably is that guy. He can get you to that next level. He's done it before, so he's a made man. He can make that happen. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here when free agency opens up, and obviously when Aaron makes his decision about whether or not he's going to continue to play football. I don't think Seattle's going to let Russell Wilson go. I just don't see that happening. You'd have to give up a lot of assets in order to trade for Russell Wilson, so I just don't see that happening.
All right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over all of the free agent quarterbacks that we have listed, okay? And then we're going to match the quarterbacks if there is such a thing with the ones that Greg talked about. And I'm going to go over every one. Someone may not get a job at all, but I'm going to go over one by one, okay? Cam Newton, Mitch Trubisky, Tyrod Taylor, Jameis Winston, Andy Dalton, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Teddy Bridgewater, Marcus Mariota, and of course, Greg was talking about the fact that Trubisky, Winston, and Mariota appear to be the most enticing options. But those names out there, okay? Greg, why don't you tell me if any of these quarterbacks and we're going to go by based on the list that you said of the needy teams right now. Of that group, if there are any, who would be the best fit for the Steelers if Russell Wilson doesn't become available?
Well, of the teams we're talking about, their first three options should be Rodgers, Wilson, and Watson. Okay? Assuming you can't get any of those three, of those free agents, the only one that gets me excited somewhat is Jameis Winston. Yeah, you think of interceptions with Winston, but he also threw for a couple years ago, 5,000 yards and like 35 or so touchdowns. He has some raw talent. Did he learn some stuff under Sean Payton? So, if I was any one of these teams, I mean, Pittsburgh with their receiving core, I mean, if they can't get one of those three guys in the trade that I mentioned, I think all these teams, Winston is the guy you go after. I mean, as opposed to trading for a Jimmy Garoppolo, he's not going to take the Steelers to the next level, just like he couldn't get San Francisco to the Super Bowl. So these other guys, Trubisky, part of me still thinks, is there something untapped there? Was he just stuck in the malaise of Chicago? Because he had a pretty good rookie year. So he'd be the next guy I'd go for. And I'm just looking at these teams. And I think all these guys, other than maybe Winston, 1 year fixes. I mean, could a team like Washington, we'll go with Trubisky for a year, and we'll also draft a quarterback and develop him. So I got Winston going. If I guess of all those teams, Pittsburgh, there's a chance he goes back to Tampa, possibly. So those are my initial thoughts.
Okay, Steve, where do you want to go with this?
Well, when you're looking at Pittsburgh, I don't think the guy that they have there right now is the answer. He just doesn't seem like he's going to be the guy. So, with the Steelers draft position, are they going to be able to pick one of the quarterbacks that, as we talked offline, maybe Pickett? I don't think he'd be there at 20 and, without knowing how the Steelers feel about it. The guy that, as a stopgap 1 year, maybe a second year option, I think that would fit their type of offense is Marcus Mariota. I don't know. I mean, he's never been overly impressive to me, but I think with that team, I think they could, play to his talents. I think they could make some noise. I'm not saying they're going to be a Super Bowl contender, but because I think he's just a stopgap measure until they get their next franchise quarterback in place. I just think he'd be a fit for the Steelers.
Yeah, my only concern with Marcus Mariota has been his injury situation.
Yep. Can't stay
And, I know he got banged up quite a bit with Tennessee, and as a result, that's why they had to trade for Tannehill, and he became the backup. Landed with the Raiders. Of course, he's remained a backup under Gruden. So, you could unleash a guy like him. I'd love to see him get a starting job. At one point, you had Winston and Mariota, who's who, and now both of them have already changed teams at least one time. So what about you, Mel? Who do you think would be a good fit for the Steelers?
Out of those guys that you mentioned, it would probably be Jameis Winston would probably be the best fit. He's a guy that's going to push the ball down the field. He's going to throw the ball. He'll take some chances. And, I know Pittsburgh probably wants to get back to running the football, and I think that'll be good for somebody like Jameis, maybe help him eliminate some of those turnovers that he was having early on in his career. But, out of those, because I'm kind of partial to Pittsburgh. I like to see Mike Tomlin do well, and they made some big news this past week with the hiring of the coach. But out of those individuals, I think that Jameis makes the most sense because he's a guy. A lot of those guys are just kind of journeymen. They've been here, they've been there. Jameis probably would have had a good year last year had he not gotten hurt. I wouldn't want to see Cam Newton go there because it's going to be a different place, same Cam. As much as I root for Cam as a player and hope he has an opportunity to go somewhere and continue his career, I don't think he's definitely not the guy for the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Pittsburgh Steelers are in a win now mode. They didn't see the quarterback. I know Kevin Colbert, who's getting ready to leave from over there. He likes Mason Rudolph. So we'll have to see. You get some guys in there, you let the guys compete. Don't name anybody that started. Let the guys compete and let the chips fall where they may.
One wild card I got out there, guys, is, and this is just a 1-year potential fix, draft a quarterback, let him develop, Ryan Fitzpatrick. I thought he played great for the Dolphins, veteran presence. Would he be good in Pittsburgh for a year if they draft another quarterback? I mean, I like him. I would, based on what I saw at the Dolphins, I'd take Fitzpatrick over Winston.
But you know what? I'll give you my wild card on that. Okay, if I'm going to go a wild card pick, okay, right. not Jameis Winston, who I think would be a solid choice. I would go with Andy Dalton, and I'll tell you why I would go Andy Dalton at Pittsburgh, because Tomlin knows him well. He faced him a couple of times when they faced Cincinnati. And what better guy to bring on your team when you faced him a couple of times and he's solid? Again, you're only talking about a 1-year thing anyhow. But ideally, I think the long term, if they could get him, I'm totally Kenny Pickett, because you have a quarterback in the same building. And what do you have to do to get from one place to the other? Open up the one door and go next door, and I think Pickett would be the long term. But I personally think that Andy Dalton would be the wild card. Logically, I think that Mike Tomlin could go ahead and reel Jameis Winston in there, but definitely not Jimmy Garoppolo. So, all right, so let's go on to the Colts. We talked about them earlier, okay? And again, tonight's broadcast is going to focus on the 6 needy teams, and we'll throw a couple wild cards in there with other teams as well. Well, let's talk about the Indianapolis Colts. Steve, why don't you lead off with the Colts?
Yeah, I mean, Frank Reich, I'm trying to think of somebody that Frank Reich would like. And, obviously it would be somebody like Aaron Rodgers if Rodgers demands a trade out of, Green Bay. Other than that, maybe Russell Wilson. Again, we're talking Wilson. I don't think that they'll make a move for Deshaun Watson just because of the situation that he's in off the field. So, I mean, if I'm the Colts and I'm going to, make a big splash with the trade, it'd probably be try to get Wilson or Aaron Rodgers. Other than that, the free agent quarterbacks out there, I don't know that there's anything or anyone out there that would be a fit for the Colts. I don't know. I mean, I don't know Frank Reich as well as other people do, but I think if they're going to make a splash and they're a team that's ready to win now, I could see them that would be a team I could see making a move for Wilson or Aaron Rodgers. Not to say that it's going to happen, but I think they'll probably give it some phone time to see if they could pry one of those guys loose.
Yeah, the only problem I have with Wilson is, does Indianapolis have enough draft capital or assets to be able to swing a trade with Seattle? Otherwise, I see where the fit is for sure. And if I had to go in that list of people that would be available there, again, I'll go back to, I would go with Mitchell Trubisky, believe it or not. I think that, like you said, Steve, Mitch Trubisky got a raw deal in Chicago. He really did. He took him to the playoffs, and had he had been coached up, Mitch Trubisky, in my opinion, could go to any of these places that we're going to talk about. I think he deserves a second opportunity somewhere, and he's looking to prove a lot of people wrong. With that said, I mentioned where the Colts. Mel, what do you think?
I mean, you're talking about Mitch Trubisky getting a second chance. The USFL is going to start up here in a minute. He can get a second chance there.
I'm
never real high on Mitch Trubisky, to be honest.
You can hardly tell.
The Indianapolis Colts, here's the thing, and like you were talking about, I mean, what are you going to give up? I think they want 5 to 7 people for Deshaun Watson. They want 3 first-round draft picks, plus, the total package like 5 to 7 players or something like that. You're mortgaging your franchise when you bring in a guy when you do something like that. So the key is, you got to try to find somebody. You got to try to make it work. I mean, you might as well, love the one. I mean, if you can't love the one you want, you might as well love the one you're with. And, that's why I don't understand, all of a sudden what happened, they're falling out with Carson Wentz. I mean, at least you know his flaws. You know what his weaknesses are. You also know his strengths as well. So what you need to try to do is you need to try to do things that he's, try to build offense around things that he's good at, and try to not do some of the things that he's not very good at. They run the football very well. You don't need him to do a whole lot. I mean, it doesn't take a lot. I can hand the ball off 25, 30 times a game and maybe throw it 15, 20 times a game if that's what you need me to do. That's what you do. They got the defense. They got a running game. I mean, they might as well dance with the girls they brought to the dance. It doesn't make any sense to mortgage your future when you have, a guy that was, a number one draft pick in one particular year, was the front runner to win the MVP award the year that he got hurt. So you just got to try to figure out a way to make it work. I mean, everybody would love to have Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, of course. Everybody would love to have Tom Brady. Absolutely. Everybody wants Russell Wilson. Yeah, everybody wants, but there's not that many of those guys. Everybody can't have that guy. So you got to dance with the girl that you brought to the dance, and try to figure out how to coordinate your feet and not step on her toes. That's what you got to do.
Well, he's owed $15 million and he's got another $7 million. Right. So what you're saying makes a tremendous amount of sense. That I'm talking about the quarterbacks available, but if I had to make the call on any of this, I think Carson Wentz should go back one more year at least to try to fix it, because it doesn't seem like there's any suitable alternatives. And maybe if you're lucky with a second or third round pick, you might find a good quarterback later on for whom you can develop. So good point. Greg, do you want to touch on the Colts one more time, or you before we move on to the next
my
team?
2 cents. Carson Wentz, I'll throw him. Mel mentioned Ryan Tannehill. We haven't mentioned Kirk Cousins. All three of them to me are in the same group. They're all good quarterbacks. You look at their end of year stats and you go, man, pretty good guy. But they don't seem to rise to the occasion when you really need it. I mean, Carson Wentz, I think this year had 27 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. Much better than I thought. Okay? So you go, that's pretty good with their defense and their rushing game. That's all you needed a quarterback. Indianapolis, I think, has a Super Bowl potential roster if they can upgrade the quarterback. Do they have the assets to get a Russell Wilson? It'll be a challenge, but I would certainly explore that avenue. And they need to make a decision quick, because I think he's got salary and roster bonuses for Wentz that are coming due soon. And if you let him go free agency, and then you can't get Wilson, you may not have Wentz either. So Indianapolis has a big decision to make there. One name we haven't discussed yet, and it's a small sample size. He's a restricted free agent, and that's the Ravens' backup quarterback, Tyler Huntley. I thought he had some real good flashes filling in for Lamar Jackson. He's got some upside, obviously a young guy, but I'd feel more comfortable rolling the dice with him than a Jameis Winston if I was somebody, just because of his age and potential.
Yeah, I just don't see Baltimore letting him go.
Me either.
I think he showed a lot of potential. I was watching him play. I was really impressed with him. And, with the style of play that Jackson plays, and he was hurt for a while last year, I think that for the time being, they're going to keep him right where he's at. He's a restricted free agent, so they can kind of control that. I think he'd be a really good fit for a lot of different teams, but I just don't see Baltimore letting him out of the building just yet.
Well, me either.
I'm not an expert on restricted free agency, but another team could make an offer that Baltimore just says, there's no way we're matching that for a backup quarterback.
Yeah, you know what, though? I may disagree with you on this one, Greg, and I'll tell you why. When you have your insurance policy there for Lamar Jackson, I have a feeling that you may want to hold on to him a little bit longer, because everybody can tell you that some of these mobile quarterbacks can get banged up if they get hit too many times. So, all right, let's move this thing along a little bit, talk about the Denver Broncos, and we have 3 more teams and maybe 1 or 2 more after that. So, all right, Mel, where do you think the Broncos should go?
Well, I mean, obviously, there's a connection with Aaron Rodgers. If Aaron Rodgers decides that he wants to leave and they can get Aaron Rodgers, then get Aaron Rodgers. I mean, that's pretty much any team. Go after Aaron Rodgers if you can get him. But they have Bridgewater, who I was never really high on. I don't know what his contract situation is. They got Drew Lock there. I wasn't never really too high on him either. But again, they have a new coach. They got a good running back there. I think he's a free agent this year. Maybe he'll re-sign back with Denver. I'm not sure. We'll have to see.
Melvin Gordon.
Yeah. The guy that came over from San Diego.
Yeah, you're talking about Melvin Gordon.
Yep. So I'm sorry, the Chargers.
That doesn't matter. Everybody calls them San Diego.
So it's going to be an adjustment period there because they do have all new coaching there. So you got new terminology, you got new offensive coordinator, you got a whole new offensive that's going to be installed there. So that's not. I think whatever they do, they're probably a year away. They're not going to. In that division with the Chargers, with the Raiders, with Kansas City, it's going to be very difficult. Chargers played very well last year. They don't have any changes. They got their head coach coming back. Yeah, the Raiders got a new coach coming in there. I'm sure they're probably going to be a little bit tougher with Josh McDaniel there. And then we know what Kansas City's going to, what they're all about. So they should really be trying to, build this thing up the right way and get ready to compete in years to come, and not necessarily this coming year, because they did get rid of their best player on defense, and Von Miller got rid of him midway through the season. I'm assuming that they're going to make a quarterback change. I've heard some people say some things about Drew Lock and this particular offense. I don't really know, so we'll just have to see. But I think they should just draft well, build from the inside out, and look to compete in years to come.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's a quarterback on this free agent market here that would be suitable for the Broncos. What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's like you have the big three names that we put out, and the other guys are all kind of middling journeyman guys that, they're all stopgap measures. I mean, Mel mentioned the Colts sticking with Carson Wentz because there might not be that guy out there. You might end up the same thing with Denver. I know they want to make a move, but I mean, who are they going to be able to bring in? I don't know. I mean, that's a really good defense they have, and they have a good running game. They have Jerry Jeudy, who I really like. I mean, that team is built to win. It's built to win now. But it's a tough division. I don't really like any of the free agents that are out there unless they swing a deal for somebody else. I mean, maybe a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo would be a stopgap measure for them.
Yeah,
because we've heard that they're going to go with Trey Lance in San Francisco.
Yeah, I think of the quarterbacks that would possibly, if they're looking to make a splash there, I would go with you there, Steve, with Jimmy Garoppolo. And maybe the one I'd probably swing for would be Jameis Winston, believe it or not, out there. You never know. Those would be the only two that I think in Denver. I'm not buying the Rodgers Kool-Aid about the coaches, because the Green Bay Packers brought in Tom Clements to try to pacify him there, and he knows that he has a relationship. So where do you want to go with this one, Greg? And then I want to address the Washington Panthers and the Saints, and maybe we go into the Tampa Bucks.
Well, in regards to Aaron Rodgers, obviously the Packers are going to do everything in their power to bring him and Devontae Adams back. All right. But when it comes to Rodgers, it's going to be up to Rodgers. He's going to tell him if he wants to come back or not. And then they'll work out it. If he wants to get traded, they'll work out a trade with someone. I mean, Denver makes sense just because of the guys we've talked about: Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, Tim Patrick, Noah Fant, the running back Williams. There is some serious offensive talent on that team, and they did nothing on offense last year with Teddy Bridgewater. If you can't get Wilson or Rodgers, and you may have to give up a Jeudy or a Patrick Surtain Jr. in a trade for Aaron Rodgers. I think Jameis Winston would make the most sense. I don't think he can bring back Bridgewater. Those are my thoughts on Denver and Aaron Rodgers.
All right, well, then let's transition, Greg, over to Washington.
Washington has the 11th pick in the draft. They have Tyler Heineke, who's an excellent backup quarterback. Washington, similar to Denver, has some good talent on that team, but they need a quarterback who could take them to the next level. They thought Fitzpatrick might take him partially that way last year, and then he got hurt in the first game of the season. So they need to do something. I think they'll look into Rodgers and Wilson and Watson. I mean, if you can't get them, they're probably going to draft the quarterback at number 11 and maybe go with Heineke another year, and maybe by the middle of the season, whoever they draft at number 11, Pickett or Corral or Willis becomes their starter the second half of the season.
All right, Steve, what do you think about the Washington?
Yeah, Fitzpatrick's he was on a 1-year deal, wasn't he?
Yeah, and
so he's a free agent. Yeah, that kind of blew up for them right in the first game because I think they had hopes that he was going to
so it's creamy.
Bring a little magic to their roster, but I think they stick with Heineke for this season, just because if they draft a young guy, then they'll give him time to develop. Heineke, he was kind of hot and cold, but I didn't think he was bad. I just don't think he's going to get them over the top in that division, because I think Dallas right now got a kind of a hold on it. I think Philadelphia, and that's another team that their starting quarterback I thought was unfairly criticized a little bit too much. I thought he played pretty well, but that's just another topic down the road. I think they stick with Heineke. I really do, just for this year. Maybe try to bring in a kid on the draft.
Where do you want to go with this, Mel?
Well, we know Garoppolo is going to be they're going to let San Francisco's going to let him go. I think that'd be a good place for him to go, Garoppolo or either Jameis Winston. He's a free agent, coming off an injury though. But I think that those would be two good places for him. Washington's a good football team. I like, obviously I like their head coach, Ron Rivera. I like what he stands for. I like what he's doing there. I think they do need to upgrade at the quarterback position. I think that Heineke is probably a good backup quarterback, and he's been playing well. But I think they need an upgrade at that position, and I think that that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be available, and I think Jimmy Garoppolo would be an upgrade at that position, and I think that Jameis would be an upgrade at that position. These are guys that we know they're going to be available. We can throw out the Russell Wilsons, we can throw out the Deshaun Watsons and Aaron Rodgers. A lot of things have to happen in order to get those quarterbacks.
The problem that you have, though, with a lot of these quarterbacks that are free agents is many of them have been hit with the injury bug. Obviously, we've talked about Mariota. Of course, now Ryan Fitzpatrick got banged up. Teddy Bridgewater has been hurt. And, and the list goes on. I'll give you my take on the Washington situation. I believe that you're right, Mel. Garoppolo could be there, and you go Taylor Heineke. But I think you address that position in the draft. And Malik Willis, a kid out of Liberty. I believe Liberty's a lot out in Virginia, right? So it's in their backyard. So I'm sure that they probably had scouts from time to time. And I'm going to go over some of the draftable quarterbacks in a moment. But as far as Washington's concerned, to me, again, Taylor Heineke could be the stopgap for 1 year with a developmental guy. Or, again, there are a couple guys out here that are 1 year contracts waiting to happen. So with that said, let's go to the Carolina Panthers. All right, Mel, we're going to let you lead off with this one.
Well, is Darnold still on the contract there, right?
Yeah, he is.
But he finished off the season, on injury reserve, got hurt or something. Carolina, man, it's the coach barely held on to his job. Ever since Christian McCaffrey got that money, he hasn't been able to stay healthy. That's a tough situation that they have over there. I never was high, and I keep saying this again, but I was never high on Sam Darnold, and it has nothing to do with him going to SC, although that might have a little bit to do with it. I think Carolina is a lot of players away, other than just a quarterback. They got to, number one, Christian McCaffrey has to find a way to stay healthy and be able to play a 17-game schedule. I mean, the offense revolves around him and his abilities, and he hasn't been available. I think he takes a lot of pressure off of whoever's in that position, whoever's in the quarterback position on that team. So with the guys that are available, that we know that are going to be available, it's a great place for Jameis. Again, it's a great place for Garoppolo. Again, if you want to upgrade that position, if you're feeling that Sam Darnold is not that guy, or you want to bring somebody in there to compete with Sam Darnold, maybe you go that route and bring in one of those two, or you bring in a Kirk Cousins. If he's a free agent, you bring in a guy like Kirk Cousins, and maybe you bring maybe you don't think Sam Darnold is where you'd like him to be. You want somebody in there to compete, teach him how to be a professional, all those kind of things, because he really didn't have that opportunity when he was at the Jets to have that kind of a mentor. Maybe you bring in a guy like that and teach him how to be a professional. Maybe a couple years down the road, then his fortunes change.
All right, Steve, where do you want to go with the Carolina Panthers?
Yeah, I agree with Mel in where he said that they're more than one player away. I think they need some help there in a lot of different areas. McCaffrey they've abused him. I mean, he was touching the ball, seemed like every play there for a couple of seasons, and now they're reaping the whirlwind on that one. I thought Darnold would benefit from a fresh start from the Jets, but after the first couple of games where he kind of looked pretty good, and I mean, it seemed like the bottom fell out on him. And Cam, as much as I like Cam, he's not the answer there. I think they have to look elsewhere. I think if you're Carolina, I think you have to look to the draft. I think that they're too far away to make a big splash in free agency. I mean, if one of these other quarterbacks was to become available, that's one thing. But I wouldn't go out and make no big deal for them. I think they're too far away at this point. And it's probably, as much as I hate to say it, time to look at getting another running back as well as that quarterback. Because McCaffrey's just, he's beat up.
Yeah. Where do you want to go with this, Greg?
There is no way you bring back Sam Darnold. I don't care. Let me play quarterback instead of Sam Darnold. All the names that we've mentioned are better than Sam Darnold, even if it's just a one-year fix. Garoppolo, Winston, Trubisky, Mariota, Ryan Fitzpatrick. I would take any of those guys over Darnold. They have the 6th pick in the draft, which, if you listen to the experts, is way too early to take any of these quarterbacks. Doesn't mean they won't use the 6th pick on a quarterback. I agree with both Mel and Steve. They got more than one position they need to upgrade. So do you trade out of the 6th spot, pick up an extra pick, maybe draft a quarterback later on? And do you trade McCaffrey? What's the market for McCaffrey out there? I'm not sure. You get some draft capital back, free up some salary cap space. General manager of Carolina is going to earn his money in the offseason. If it's me, I trade the 6th pick, draft a quarterback, sign a veteran quarterback for a year to fill in, and shop McCaffrey just to see what's out there.
Okay, well, my take on Carolina, if you're looking at this group of quarterbacks, well, number one, you've had Bridgewater, so you're not bringing him in there. I'm going to go back to Mitch Trubisky or Tyrod Taylor as your stopgap to bring them in. And you know what I really felt bad about last year was when A.J. McCarron got hurt and he was Matt Ryan's backup. I still think A.J. McCarron can play in this league. This needs to stay on his 2 feet, but that'll be for another day. But of this group that we're talking about, Mitch Trubisky, Tyrod Taylor would be ideal for me for a 1-year thing. And again, you're right. They have to draft a quarterback for sure. And do you trade back? I don't know. But what do you got to lose? When you look at this list, Cam Newton didn't work out with him. Teddy Bridgewater, been there, done that. And Sam Darnold, I guess if you have to bring him back 1 year, you do it because then you almost have another Carson Wentz situation for at least giving it 1 more year. Not that there was draft capital involved. Is that the right move? No. Is it the most logical move because you gave something up to get a guy that you thought would be your long-term guy? Maybe. But that's where I'm at. I would go personally Tyrod Taylor, Mitch Trubisky is outside, and then draft a QB. All right, the last quarterback we're going to talk about in the must category will be the New Orleans Saints. Now, this is a very interesting one. I'm going to lead off with this one. I think if they could get Jameis Winston there, you do it. But then again, Sean Payton's not there. Or maybe Jimmy Garoppolo gets an opportunity down there. You still have Kamara down there, and you also have Mark Ingram. So you have running backs. I think the unknown factor is what type of coach Dennis Allen's going to be. But for New Orleans, I mean, you never know. But if I would bring back Jameis Winston. All right. With that said, Steve, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. I think, Winston and Taysom Hill are going to be your kind of 1A and 1B kind of guys like they did. I don't know if Allen wants to continue that, but right now I think that's the way to go for them. And with Allen having been there before, that's maybe something he's comfortable with. But down the road they're going to have to make a move. Is it this year in the draft? I don't know. I don't know how their draft capital is and their long-term outlook. That'd be something I have to take a second look at. But losing Drew Brees, we knew they were going to go through a dry spell, and now they're hitting it, and now they have a new coaching staff as well. So, they have some decisions to make there, and it's not just with the quarterback, but elsewhere.
Where do you want to go with this one, Mel in New Orleans?
I think they should bring Jameis back, and they need to draft a quarterback to develop. Taysom Hill, he's not the long-term answer. He's 32, 33, 34 years old. He's an older guy. He's not the long-term solution. He's not the franchise quarterback. Jameis is, obviously he's getting up there a little bit, but Jameis can. He can buy you 2 or 3 or 4 years to draft somebody and give him an opportunity to develop. Sean Payton's not going to be there anymore, but I think they do have some continuity in the offensive play calling there with the offensive coordinator. So Jameis knows that offense. He's been in it for 2 years. This will be his 3rd year coming up. I think you stick with Jameis. You don't let him out. You don't let him leave. I don't think Jameis is going to be very expensive given the fact that he's coming off that injury. And who knows how he's rehabbing that injury and how he's doing, how he's coming along better than the Saints. I'm sure he's rehabbing in the building there. They know him better than anybody. They know how far along he is. They know how long it's going to be until he can get out there and run around full speed again. So I think you just run it back with Jameis Winston. Jameis signs another 1-year deal. I know that's probably not what he wanted to do. He probably wanted to audition for a longer term deal, but he signs another 1-year deal, and see what he can do with the Saints. Defensively, the Saints are ready to win now. To win now. They're the wide receiver position. They have some questions, I guess, going on now with who was it, Thomas?
Michael Thomas, yeah.
Thomas is, there's some discussion going on there. So, but I think you just run it back with Jameis.
All right, Greg, where do you stand with New Orleans?
Well, the initial gut reaction is agree with Steve and Mel. Jameis makes the most sense. He's the most talented of the free agents out there. He's familiar with the system. The biggest problem New Orleans has is I believe they are $70 million over the salary cap. And that doesn't include their offensive tackle Armstead, who's probably going to get $20 million a year from somebody. So can they afford to sign Winston? Somebody's going to offer Winston a multi-year deal in excess of $20 million, I think. So are the Saints just better off drafting a quarterback? I think they're picking 18th. He definitely won't be ready on day one. So do you bring in one of these other names that we've talked for a year, let the rookie develop, trade a Michael Thomas? Because I'm not sure how they're going to address their salary cap situation. I'm not familiar enough with their roster. But, Michael Thomas would free up some money. I'm sure they want to keep Kamara. But, who knows? Just like McCaffrey. You float him out there, see what you get for takers and what people are going to offer you? I don't know. But when you're $70 million over the cap and arguably your best player in Armstead is a free agent, you got some serious money problems.
All right, so let me go over a few things here. Yeah, and I'm only going to mention 3 spots where I do believe that Winston belongs. One, a return to Tampa would make sense to me. New Orleans, if you can do it, or Pittsburgh, and that would be it. Now, with that said, I want to talk about draft quarterbacks. I'm only going to list them here, okay, because we have another 12 minutes to go in the broadcast. Kenny Pickett of Pittsburgh, I know will be highly coveted. Malik Willis, we talked about out of Liberty. Matt Corral out of Ole Miss, although I think he suffered an injury. Carson Strong of Nevada. Sam Howell of North Carolina, who I hear has been linked to Detroit out of North Carolina in a couple of mock drafts. That would make sense since the Lions pick up a quarterback as one of their number one picks on the back end of the draft in the Goff trade. So that would make a lot of sense. And then Desmond Ritter of Cincinnati. So it remains with, I don't take a lot of stock in these mock drafts. I'm sure a lot of them do a lot of research to get these, but these are the guys I'll be curious to see where they go. Are they nearly as good as the draft class we had last year? I don't know. And again, do we even know how good last year's draft class is going to turn out? That's another story altogether. So I'm going to ask you guys very briefly, of these young quarterbacks that I just mentioned, which one would be most ready to start immediately? And Steve, lead off.
I think it would be Pickett. I think that's the consensus right now, that Pickett is the most NFL ready. One team to keep an eye on in the draft this year is Philadelphia. I know I just mentioned Hurts. I don't know if they're sold on him, but Philadelphia has 3 first-round draft picks this year. So if they're going to make a move for a guy, maybe a quarterback like Pickett, I don't think so. But if they are, they have the capital to go up and do it.
Okay, Mel, of these 6 quarterbacks, which one do you think would be starting much quicker than any of them?
Oh, guys, I don't know. I haven't watched the majority of them play. The only one I've really seen play, and I like his play, is Ritter, the kid out of Cincinnati. I've seen him play. I've watched him play for a few years now. I like his game. I like what he does. I like his poise on the field. But to say, for me to pick one out of those guys, everything depends on the situation where these guys end up at. A lot of that depends on where these guys end up at and the situation there at the quarterback position. I don't think anybody saw Dak Prescott starting when they drafted him in the 4th round, but that's what ended up happening because Tony Romo ended up getting hurt. So, and that's worked out well for the Cowboys. I like the kid. I like the kid out of Cincinnati. I really do. I like him. I've got the opportunity to watch him play. In the big games, the stage wasn't too big for him. And so, I think he would do well. I think he'll do well in the league.
Well, let me back up your point a little bit, Mel. Okay, Ritter took Cincinnati to the Final Four, and he's well coached under Luke Fickell. So I'm stating your case a little bit more to justify what you said. All right, Greg Fuchs, of these 6 that you put down, which one do you think will start right away?
I don't think any of them will start on day one. According to the experts, Kenny Pickett seems to be the odds-on favorite for who will start the soonest. I think he's got the NFL size, the arm, the mobility. But when it comes to college quarterbacks, a lot of it is you got to be able to read the defenses, make decisions, and throw the ball accurately. So I think Pickett's the most likely. And also, if you listen to that same group of experts, they don't think any of these 6 quarterbacks are as good as any of the 5 quarterbacks who were drafted last year. Well, that tells you something about them.
Yeah, well, that's true. There are quarterback classes that are good, and then there are that aren't as good. But either way, you have a lot of teams, as you mentioned here, Greg. Okay, you have 12 potential trade candidates, 8 free agents, 6 draftees, coming up with 26, which validates your point that you've got 26, and you have quantity over quality. So I want to make reference on something that Bruce Arians mentioned today. And he gave a glowing endorsement to Blaine Gabbert, who said he's had 8 coaches, head coaches, and 8 offensive coordinators in 8 years on bad teams. Now, I can tell you right now, being a Lions person, I've seen, everybody will say Joey Harrington was a bust. And you know what? I don't believe to this day that he really was, because he fell into that trap. Too many offensive coordinators, too many head coaches, recipe for disaster. Does that mean that Joey Harrington Yeah, of course you did. When your coaching isn't consistent at the top, which validates what Arian said. So as far as Tampa is concerned, it wouldn't surprise me if Bruce Arians could coach up Blaine Gabbert And don't forget, you have Kyle Trask waiting in the wings. And I could see them maybe going after one of these free agents there, but at least Bruce Arians could flat out coach. If you don't believe that, ask Andrew Luck, okay? When Chuck Pagano went down and Bruce Arians ran that team, and they did pretty well with them. So with that said, that's what I think about that. What do you guys think? And we're going to wrap it up in about 5 minutes or so. Any closing thoughts about what we have? And the hat, folks, I'm wearing happens to be a Super Bowl hat because everybody is hoping these quarterbacks will get you to one of those. So go ahead, Greg.
I mean, if Bruce Arians can coach up Blaine Gabbert to be a Super Bowl quarterback, he is unarguably the greatest coach in the history of any professional sport. But Blaine Gabbert is not your answer. I would go for Winston if I was the Bucs. And like we mentioned before the show started, the Bucs got a lot of free agents. Forget Brady not being back. Gronk probably not back. Godwin may not be back. Even if he does come back, he's probably going to miss half the season. And Leonard Fournette may not be back, along with some other guys. So even if Brady was still there, are the Bucs still a legitimate Super Bowl team?
All right. So any closing thoughts, Steve, before everybody gets their information out there?
Yeah, I mean, I going to what Arian said, as I told you offline before we started the podcast here, I think that's just his way of saying, oh, well, I'm not going to get fleeced if I try to make a trade for a quarterback because I believe in the guy I have, but I don't believe in him.
So how do I make sure I get
Okay, where are you going with this one, Mel?
I don't think Bruce believes in him either. I mean, Bruce has done well with generational talents. I mean, Andrew Luck was one of those once-in-a-generation talents. Tom Brady is one of the once-in-a-generation talents. I mean, you think that Blaine Gabbert is better than Jameis Winston? I don't think so. So, I mean, if he had a difficult time coaching up Jameis, how is he going to coach Blaine Gabbert? And Blaine Gabbert, he's punched. He's been hit a lot, so he's a little gun shy out there. So, I don't make a whole lot of that out of that comment. I think the kid that they got in the draft, he had an opportunity to sit behind Tom Brady, learn a little bit, learn how to be a professional. Kyle Trask might be okay, but Blaine Gabbert is not. That's not the direction you want to go in.
All right. Well, all I'll say about the whole thing is, if I do believe that Jameis Winston is the guy that should go back to Tampa, and the only reason they got rid of him because they had a chance to get Brady. So, and we know that Jameis Winston isn't shy about throwing the football. The only thing you have to hope for is that he learned enough from Sean Payton to make sure that you don't have nearly as many turnovers as we did. Folks, this is Inside the Pigskin. My name is Scott Morganrock, Motor City Madmouth. Glad to be joined tonight by Greg Fuchs, Farr Jr., Steve Balestrieri. This is your crew for the night. Just so you know that this broadcast can be heard on Spreaker, Spotify, Apple, Google, and yes, iHeartRadio has joined our network. You can also find it on our YouTube channel. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, go to South Florida Tribune and go ahead and please subscribe. And our website is www.southfloridatribune.com, and I can be reached at Tribune South. So, all right. So with that said, okay, Steve, why don't you let everybody know how they can get a hold of you?
Yeah, real quick, you can find me on Twitter at SteveB7SFG. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram at Steve Balestrieri.
Mel?
All the social media at Mel Farr Jr. And find out what we have going on here in Atlanta and also in Detroit at melfarr.org.
Greg?
You can get my articles at southfloridatribune.com, and on Twitter, it's gfuchs at Gregory Fuchs.
And just to point things out, this is the first of a two-part series. Our next part will be next week. So Greg has another story. We wanted to make sure that we had a lot of information to bite off. So if you hopefully have a chance to watch this broadcast a few times, I don't know if you're going to be able to keep up with what we talked about because there was a lot here. But if that's good enough, because you know what? If you don't want to get a pencil and paper with this thing, go to Greg Fuchs' drop down on the South Florida Tribune, and you'll see his quarterback's stories, and then you can print it out, look it over, and he has another one that we're going to put out there as well. So, guys, excellent show tonight. I know that a lot of folks are having their football hangover, and we hope that we've given you a lot to talk about with this quarterback situation. We'll have Greg's part, and then who knows, we might even throw another one about Aaron Rodgers and devote an entire show to it. Do you really want it? I don't know, but I got news for you. We won't have any problem filling any airtime when it comes to Aaron Rodgers. So once again, folks, thank you very much for joining us on Inside the Pigskin, and we hope you have a great week, and we will catch you the next time. Good night, everybody.
Good night.